Goranita, Goranita, Goranita,
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam ततो जायमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवति उत्तमा श्लोके भवति नैष्ठिकी कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः Krishna, reading from 150. Hare Krishna. Reading from Canto 7, Chapter 4, verse number 15th. We can put it there like that. Should I? स एव वर्णाश्रमाभ्ये कल्पे भूरि दक्षिणैः युज्यमानो हरे अग्रहित्स्वेन तेजसा स एव वर्णाश्रमीभिः कल्पे भूरि दक्षिणैः युज्यमानो हरिर्भागम् अग्रहित्स्वेन तेजसा सः he indeed Varnashramim by persons who strictly followed the regulated principles of the four Varnas and four Ashramas. By the persons who strictly followed the regulated principles of the four Varnas and four Ashramas. Katubi by ritualistic ceremonies. Bhuri abundant. Dakshinai offered with gifts. Mana worshipped. Abhibhavan the portions of oblations. Agrahit usurped. Svenam his own. Exam translation and purport. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Being worshipped by sacrifices offered with great gifts by those who strictly follow the principles of Varna and Ashrama, Venyakashipu, instead of offering shares of the oblations to demigods, accepted them himself. Just read the verse and translation for the next verse and translation for the second verse. Atmishya Tasya Saptadvipa Vadimani Tata Kama Dugagavo Nanashchavya Padam Nabha. Translation. As if in fear of Hiranyakashipu, the planet Earth, which consists of 7 islands, delivered food grains without being plowed. Thus, it resembled cows like the Surabhi of the spiritual world or the calm Durga of a harem. The earth yielded sufficient food grains. The cows supplied abundant milk, and outer space was beautifully decorated with wonderful phenomenon. 17th verse. Ratnakashcha navghams tarpanyas nidhi shada siddhu tashodra dadi Shriram Vitodaka. Translation and publication. By the flowing of the waves, the various oceans of the universe, along with their tributaries, the rivers which are compared to their wives, supply various kinds of gems and jewels for even Kashipu's use. These oceans were the oceans of salt water, sugarcane juice, wine, clarified butter, milk, yogurt, and sweet water. Report. The water of the seas and oceans of this planet, of which we have experience, are salty. But other planets within the universe contain oceans of sugarcane juice, liquor, ghee, milk, and sweet water. The rivers are figuratively described as wives of the oceans and seas because they glide down into the oceans and seas as tributaries like the wives attached to their instruments. Modern scientists attempt excursions to other planets, but they have no information of how many different types of oceans and seas there are within the universe. According to their experience, the moon is full of dust, but this does not explain how it gives us soothing rays from a distance of millions of miles. As far as we are concerned, we follow the authority of Vyasadeva and Shukadev Goswami, who have described the universal situation according to the Vedic scriptures. These authorities differ from modern scientists, who conclude from their imperfect sensual experience that only this planet is inhabited by living beings, whereas the other planets are all vacant or full of dust. ज्ञानगतिमिरान्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिने नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशरागिणे वाञ्छकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धु यतीरच पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. I seek blessings from Space Muktavan and Space Manmani Panto and all devotees assembled here so that I can speak something valuable from what the senior devotees and acharyas have spoken. So these 3 verses, it's very interesting to see. It's very interesting to see about how Hiranyakashipu started it. Just one thing. Yes, I just want to show some part. Okay, I turned. This it's very interesting to see that in the same canto, chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu had ordered from verse 9, he says, when the root of a tree is cut and the tree falls down, its branches and twigs automatically dry up. Similarly, when I kill this diplomatic Vishnu, the demigods for whom Lord Vishnu is the life and soul will lose the source of their life and wither away. While I'm engaged in the business of killing Lord Vishnu, go down to the planet Earth, which is flourishing into Karmical culture, I Kshatriya government. So basically, Hiranyakashipu is, after Hiranyaka is killed, he tells to both Danavas and he quotes the names of his very close ministers too, that you go down to the planet Earth and destroy the culture of yajnas. Basically, his thought was that it is true that as per the universal law, the demigods get benefited whenever yajnas are offered, whenever ahuti is offered. It seems Agnidev becomes, he takes all the oblations and offerings and he gives to all the demigods to whom this yajna is offered to. Obviously, first it is offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna or Vishnu. But Vishnu is obviously not dependent on the offense operations. But in the case of demigods, there is some kind of reciprocal relationship because they certainly get pleasure when offerings and yajna is done, and they also get some strength, some subtle way. The strength they get energized when yajnas are done. They get more strength to perform their duties, which Vishnu has asked them to do. That is to take care of the universal systems and different departments. So Hiranyakashipu in second chapter is asking his demigods to go and destroy this Yajnik culture so that the demigods become weak. He was hoping even Vishnu becomes weak, but obviously Vishnu is independent. And his hope was that way I can overpower them. And it is very interesting to see that Hiranyakashipu, he performed austerity for for hundreds and thousands of years as per human calculation. And even in the thousands and hundreds and thousands of years, he was very absorbed in his revenge towards Vishnu. And he was also not at all compassionate toward the demigods. Even though he had acquired so much more strength, he was so much more powerful than the demigods. Now he has gone to the other extreme. Now he has what he's doing, he's accepting. Oh, sorry, not this one. Yeah. Now from 15th verse onwards, it is explained. Now he's forcing all the brahmanas, the yajnas to be done so that the oblations or offerings are done to him. And now he has manipulated the universal law in such a way, like earlier, they would go and give this strength and the pleasure to all the devtas. Now he's focusing everything towards himself alone. And he is not sharing these oblations with the other demigods. So we know from Ishopanishad this famous verse comes Isha Vasamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Runjita Magvidakasya Siddhana, where it is said that Ishopanishad is obviously Shuddhi mantra, so it is completely pure and unadulterated, and at the same time sometimes abstract as well. So it is said that everyone has a right for his quota, and one should not indulge in uh, overpowering or taking someone else's quota. That is what this shloka says, Ishavasantam sir. Otherwise, they get repercussions. Because if you want to live, be satisfied with whatever is given to you as your quota. But and whenever this someone comes and tries to snatch someone else's quota, Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharma se glani bhavati bhavata. That whenever such dharma glani happens, then he personally descends to correct the situation. There are so many examples of this. For example, Bali Maharaj, who was grandson of great grandson of Hiranyakashipu, and grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. He was a devotee of Lord, but he also went to another extreme where he was not being compassionate to the demigods. He was trying to he was not allowing them to get their quota. He basically made them go away from the Swargaloka and they were practically stranded. And we know Mother.
I just missed one point. Were you saying that by Hiranyakashipu's influence, Agnidev became selfish and he just kept everything with himself?
No,
After he-
I'm saying the offerings only came to him. He became selfish. Hiranyakashipu became selfish, not Agnidev.
Okay.
He manipulated the law. Obviously, I do not know the law very perfectly, but in summary, this is what happens. That's what I have heard. So that's what is being said in verse 15, that all whatever the benefits of the yajnas, he is only taking it for himself and not sharing it with others in verse 15. And yeah, so when Bali Maharaj was not following this principle, Ishavasamitam Sarvam, and he basically overpowered into others' quota, then by also prayers of his mother, their mother Aditi, Vamandev came and he corrected the situation. And obviously, he made a win-win kind of a situation where even Bali Maharaj was pleased. And obviously, the Danvas were very upset because the kingdom was taken from them. But the Sudras, they got their kingdom. So this quota they got. Stop sharing this. I also wanted to share some other interesting points that I heard with regards to austerity and self-introspection. Uh, when we hear this pastime of Hiranyakshipu and Prahlad Maharaj, especially I heard from a couple classes from his place, Radha Gopinath Prabhu and Krishna Chandra Prabhu on these similar topics. I was thinking to share some nice points. I before beginning that I forgot to mention that there was one more mention in the purport about going to other planets. There was a mention of that the material scientists they often think that probably life is only in this planet and life doesn't exist in other planets. So obviously, Srila Prabhupada very beautifully and logically explains that just like we have our certain proportions of Panchamahabhut, earth, water, fire, air, ether, which make us suited for us to live on this planet Earth. Similarly, in other planets, there is a different proportion of Panchamahabhut, so that supports life on that planet. And example is that on Sun planet, where it is so hot, uh, the bodies obviously they will have a high component of fire. So these examples are given. And in the easy journey to other planets, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the beginning of the book, he mentioned that this interest of going to other planets, like these days we hear a lot, right, from SpaceX, they have a timeline by which they want to reach Mars. They are building the technology so that they can reach Mars. The US has again revived interest in going to moon and send astronauts there. So Prabhupada, interestingly, he visited like more than 50, 60 years ago. Prabhupada is saying that actually interest for interplanetary system travel was always there. It's not something very new. It's just that the way of how the interplanetary travel would happen was different. And those who are learned in Vedic scriptures, they would know the art of how they can do interplanetary travel, either in that life or in the next life. Next life, obviously, we hear this verse like Yanti Deva, Vata Deva, Pitra Yanti Pitrata, Bhutani Yanti Puteja, Yanti Yajino Bhima. Where Krishna says, if you worship the Devas and want to go to Devas, you will go to that planet where the Devas are there. If you want to go to the Bhutas, they will go there. If you worship me, you will come to my spiritual world. So this interest of interplanetary travel was always there. And certainly it was very much feasible for us at the end of life, next life, we can go to next planet, other planetary system. But even within that life also, there were means by which we want to do interplanetary travel. For example, one very special, it's a speciality that we see Arjuna in the case of Earth. In Mahabharata, we hear that Arjuna, throughout his travels, he did so many things to please different personalities. And by that means, he got so many benedictions. So, for example, it is we know that in that story where Agnidev had asked that you please help me, that I am interested in devouring Khandavkast, the land of forest. There was basically wasteland, but there was this snake Takshaka that Indra wanted to protect. So whenever he wanted, and it is said that Agni had actually there was a big yajna for Agni Dev, and he had got a lot of offerings and he was having indigestion. And it was recommended for him that for him to become well, he should consume Khandavkas, the forest land, because that has very special herbs. So, but whenever he would try to do it, Indra would like pour in and the fire would be extinguished. So he was not able to consume, it was his very dear desire to consume Khandavkas. And then he approached Krishna and Arjuna and they agreed to help. So Arjuna with his arrows, he makes such a web. So as soon as Agnidev starts consuming with great fire, then Arjuna with his bow, he creates a net of arrows such that rain cannot fall below that net. So that way Agnidev is able to consume Khandavas. So Agnidev was very much pleased. Unfortunately, Takshak was not there that time, so that was not an issue for Indra also, though his son dies. Uh, but at the end, Agnidev becomes very pleased. And that time, Agnidev gives multiple benedictions to Arjuna. I believe he gives the chariot and quivers. The Gandiva bow is, I believe, is given by Agnidev only. But in that one, there is one very special benediction where Agnidev gives the benediction to Arjuna that he can travel anywhere in the universe. So he has that benediction. So he can do interplanetary travel. Arjuna had the boon and as well as capability to do interplanetary travel by pleasing Agni Dev. So I'm just trying to put forth the point that the interest for interplanetary travel was there. Because when you do interplanetary travel, there are some planets which are special in some things. Like we hear there are oceans of salt water, oceans of liquor, and then there are some places which are extremely beautiful, very scenic. So if you want to, like we go to different places for beautiful views, beautiful sceneries here, there are places where the beauty is even far superior. So there is always that interest, and there were ways. Coming to the point about austerity, uh, so I heard this from his Gopinath Prabhu. He was mentioning that we see that Hiranyakashipu, he performs so many austerities. And he asks Prahlad Maharaj, he is, like when Prahlad Maharaj comes, which is going to happen in 5th chapter, and he's going to ask him, what did you like? So Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad Maharaj saw Hiranyakashipu, and just like an expert doctor, someone who is very, very skilled in a field, you will understand when they become so great that people start taking his consultants, like start consulting him. Because such a great expert, what they can do, they can immediately figure out the issue and they can give a solution, whether it is coding or it is system design or physical health, right? Because they have become expert in that field. So similarly, when it comes to approaching the sadhus, great sadhus, devotees of the Lord, they are also very expert. So Hiranyakashipu, in this chapter, it is explained that he performed so many austerities. He performed so many austerities. He acquired unimaginable strength, which was never heard by in the past because he was able to even manipulate the universal laws. And only three personalities were unaffected by him: Brahma, Shiva, and Lord Vishnu. But even though he had all this power, he could manifest the weather of his choice. Like today, I wanted cold. Today, I want snow. So he would have snow that day. Today, he wants very pleasing spring weather. He would have spring weather the other day. Can you imagine? At best, what modern technology allows us to is to change the HVAC, but we do not have the ability to like now. Okay, today I want these flowers to bloom. I want my garden to be bloomed by these flowers. He was even able to manipulate seasonality as per his will and whims. So that kind of power he had. So there was practically nothing he couldn't do. But still, it is explained in Bhagavatam that he was still anxious. There was a lot of anxiety. He would also have his own kind of stress. And when Prahlad Maharaj saw this, he immediately figured out uh, the solution for that. And the solution Prahlad Maharaj says is, "Oh, great Asura, you are the best of all demons. That which is that sadhumanya svavayadhinam sarasam pritnadhyam satgrahat yamandrakupam padam gadoya rimashreta." So the solution he says is you're so much madly absorbed in this material enjoyment. The way to come out of this anxiety is to go to Vrindavan, associate with sadhus, and then take to Krishna consciousness. So this was the great, as an expert, he gave this solution. So in that context, you see, regarding tapasya, austerity. So basically, Prahlad Maharaj was entering Hiranyakashipu, you take Vanaprastha or sannyas, go to Vrindavan and practice bhakti very strictly. And Bhagavatam, there is one very nice purport I wanted to show. Share screen. Regarding tapasya. So this verse comes in 11th canto, 18th chapter, 4th verse. In 18th chapter, basically the description of Varnashrama Dharma, especially about Vanaprastha ashram, is explained here. This is Grishme tapyeta panchadin varshasva ansra sajjale akhanta magnash shira evam tapaschalet. So very interesting translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. This is with regards to tapasya in general and tapasya, especially that Prahlad Maharaj was like encouraging Hiranyakashipu to perform in a way and to basically practice Krishna consciousness. So translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, not by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Thus engaged as a vanapasta, one should execute penance during the hottest summer days by subjecting oneself to burning fires on four sides and the blazing sun overhead. During the rainy season, one should remain outside, subjecting oneself to torrents of rain. And in the freezing winter, one should remain submerged in water up to one's neck. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purpose. One who engages in sense gratification must perform severe penances at the end of life to counteract his sinful hedonistic activities. A devotee of the Lord, however, naturally develops Krishna consciousness and need not subject himself to such radical penances as stated in Panchavarta. So this point is so important. So in your youth or in whatever middle age, whatever, if we engage in lot of sense gratification, we need to do equal amount or even more amount of effort to get out of it if you're not taking to Krishna consciousness. So this is a very important point. It's not that one, because in this world, there is no dearth of people doing tapasya. Everyone does tapasya. If you just see the world, materialists, they do so much tapasya. They can work even harder than devotees also sometimes. What is their absorption? Their absorption is to get material wealth or means by which they can gratify their senses. So that is their absorption. And they're ready to go to great lengths to get that. So everyone is engaged in tapasya. But what kind of tapasya does Krishna encourage? One should develop Krishna consciousness. Because if you just engage in those kinds of tapasya, which which suit you for sense gratification, one has to pay the price later on. If one is not living as per one ashram dharma, or not following Vedic culture, or not, and especially if not leading a Krishna conscious culture. We are very fortunate that because of association of devotees, we are we are practicing Krishna conscious activities now. So gradually would come gradually. And one would have to put lesser effort. Otherwise, this kind of effort seems unheard in this Kali Yuga where one puts fire around themselves or keeping themselves in cold, freezing water, not covering themselves during rainy season. And here, Navad Muni in this purport, further on, he speaks that what kind of tapasya is encouraged in Navad Panchavatam. Avedito yadi haris tapasa tata kim nalalito yadi haris tapasa tata kim antavahi yadi haris tapasa tata kim nantavahi yadi haris tapasa tata kim. If one is worshipping the Lord properly, what is the use of severe penances? And if one is not properly worshipping the Lord, what is the use of severe penances? If Shri Krishna is realized within and without everything that exists, what is the use of severe penances? And if Shri Krishna is not seen within and without everything, then what is the use of severe penances? So, very graphic. Yeah. Yeah. So, Radha Gopinath Prabhu was also mentioning that there were three things which we can see in Hiranyakashipu, and typically materialists and even spiritualists. Though there is significant difference in how devotees and materialists do, as mentioned in that Yanisha Sarva Bhutani Tasyam Jagati Sarva. So that they have very diametrically opposite views and consciousness. So Radha Gopinath Prabhu mentions three A's. A is activity, which is at bodily platform. Next A is absorption. And third, okay. Alertness. Sorry, alertness. Yeah. Third is alertness. So activity, which is bodily, what we say, bodily activity. The materialists are engaged in physical activity, and in fortunately, they're engaged in activity just to please themselves, keeping themselves in the in the center. They will do so much ugra hard work, like assets they will work. Muda is explained. Such karmis who are just interested in short-term benefit are called mudas by Krishna speaks. Tells that they are mudas in the spirit. In Bhagavad Gita it comes. Namam Dashketu no muda. And on the contrary, spiritualists though they may have some external obligations and responsibilities due to which they get a job, due to which they have a job and they do, but they are always absorbed and alert. Alert is at intelligence level. But even devotees, whatever time they get, they engage even bodily, they even engage their body in Krishna consciousness activities. It's not that they are only engaged in outwardly responsibilities and not engaging their body in Krishna conscious activities. Recently, his guest Leela Purushottam Prabhu came and he was sharing one point. He was saying, our goal in life should be to increase our sukriti. So, whatever we do, we should try to see in such a way that everything gets engaged in Krishna's service. So, if we can plan our life also in such a way that in all levels, body, mind, and intelligence level, all of it can be engaged in service 24 hours by 7. That is perfection. That way we can get so much sukriti. Yeah. So, and Radha Gopinath was mentioning that the greatest austerities for devotees is devotional service. Or Vinadapi Sunichari, he quotes that verse. It is remembering the Lord is the greatest austerities, and for which humility, tolerance, and desire to give all respects to others and not expecting any respects is past. Yeah. So we read history, and in another class I heard that we read history with a purpose to remember the lessons. So we spoke about Hiranyakashipu doing so much austerity. While doing austerity, also he's absorbed in taking his revenge. And after success of his austerity, only pleasing himself. So as devotees, we would have strong, what we say, uh, we certainly wouldn't like it. I mean, there is repulsion when we hear such things like we certainly don't want to become like Hiranyakashipu. So there is strong repulsion for devotees. Natural repulsion is there for devotees. But in the simultaneously, what we can also see is that we can also take lessons and do introspection of are we ourselves tiny Hiranyakashipus or are we and are we trying to become better and we are becoming perfect great devotees of the Lord. So Hiranyakashipu, obviously no one in this age can perfectly imitate Hiranyakashipu in his austerities or in his opulence. But nevertheless, all of us, if we are tiny Hiranyakashipus, we may also want to do a lot of austerities for our own pleasure. And just because there is a lack of opportunity doesn't mean that we are very great people. I mean, lack of opportunity doesn't ensure character. Character is what we do when no one is watching us. So whether it is desire for power, so there is a very famous quote regarding power. So even if we wanted power across all. So there's a famous quote that says, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." So even Hiranyakashipu had absolute power, and he was thoroughly corrupted. And in that context, it is so nice that in the Vaishnava community, there is so much interdependence between devotees in services, in terms of sangha, and this is actually a benediction because if we have this propensity that okay, I want to be in power, I don't need anyone around me, I can do whatever I do, I don't need anyone's help, I can just get everything done. Then actually, it will corrupt us. Yeah. So. Um, yeah. So another comparison is we see Hiranyakashipu also wanted the best for his family and children. He was wanting like he sent Prahlad Maharaj to Shanda and Amarka so that Prahlad Maharaj learns perfect diplomacy, negotiation, and other soft skills that are needed for him to run the world, right? And we see in this world also, uh, all the parents, it's a big concern for parents to send their children to best of all schools. What is the purpose? So that they can themselves become some tiny controllers and not be dependent on others. So we do see such similarities if we keep ourselves in interest or the what we say our those who are close and dear to us, thinking about their self-interest and gradually thinking about our, in extended way, thinking about our own self-interest. Similarly, so parents want their children to do very well in their materialistic career. They want to best of all colleges, best of all jobs. It may be out of love, but it is at the end. So there is some degree of extended self-interest, especially if they are only interested in if their children to get material wealth and not interested in spiritual wealth. Similarly, no one in this world wants to die. We all want to live unlimitedly. No one wants to be controlled by others. So it's just that maybe we are not having that possibility. So it may look like I may not have it, but it's good to introspect. Is my desire really to be immortal so that I can be in this body permanently, or is my desire to serve continuously, whether in this body or in the next? Or even if I keep my health properly, the only purpose is so that I can practice bhakti and do the needful, or possibly, if possible, attain perfection in this very life and go back to God at Ashura Gopal will say. So basically, all of conditioned jiva has these propensities. Maybe in tiny fraction, even if Kashfu obviously showed them to extreme fashion, but it is very common for conditioned jivas also to have these kind of seeds that I should have control, my kids should be very well, they should have control, I be immortal and enjoy this body to the greatest extent, I not be controlled by others. So the way we can actually overcome this is again practicing Krishna consciousness and especially taking association of sadhus, advanced devotees of the Lord. Only then can we overcome these kind of what we say these kinds of propensities. Because what happens often reality is different from our desires. So people like, for example, another example of how we can see that conditioned jiva has such desires to live such fancy life. People go to cinema. So if they are not able to fulfill their own, they're not able to fulfill their desires. They go to cinema or to theaters or watch movies and see someone else living a very fancy life where they are fulfilling their desires. So yeah. So yeah. So yeah. So I think that is the key point I wanted to end. And also when it comes to attachment, we also learn attachment. So Hiranyakashipu was also very much attached. Like similar, like we also see like how Dhritarashtra is attached so much. Even though he knows so clearly, he knows that Duryodhana is just a blemish for the entire Kuru dynasty, is not ready to give him up. So we may also have attachments in our life which are stopping us from making progress in bhakti. So in tiny way or in whatever fraction. So in all cases, we have to take shelter of devotees and Shri Krishna to come out of these tiny Hiranyakashipu propensities. This point was often like Kunti Mahani says, Tvam Akinchana Pochara. So Akinchana means they are helplessly taking shelter of Krishna. So how does that helpless means? The helpless situation must be felt by a jiva. Like we were talking of alertness and absorption. So absorption in Krishna to please Krishna and devotees. Alertness to not fall victim to Maya. Not be in a dangerous place so that you get hurt. So and akinchana, I'm continuously taking shelter of Krishna. So this beautiful analogy is even there. If one is drowning in an ocean or in a river, and if somehow a ship comes and they throw a rope over this saving this what we say, I forgot what we call that. Huh? Some kind of life jacket or basically some ways by which they can hold on to so that they can save themselves. How tightly do such people hold it if they're in such a precarious situation, if they're in that ocean? So that is how we should hold on to Krishna and the holy name. Because that is the only way if we surrender to holy name to Krishna and the devotees of Krishna, can we actually overcome these tiny Hiranyakashipu like propensities. I'll end here. So, there are any comments you want to comments?
So how do we introspect and identify these tiny Hiranyakashipu tendencies? Many times they just go unnoticed. They are there for sure, but we don't recognize them.
So certainly one way is uh, devotees' feedback is very welcome. They can point out. I always used to hear from Mr. Mukundanand, my counselor, that if you're getting feedback from devotees, it is a great benediction. Because as devotees spend more and more time in Krishna consciousness, some of the getting feedback is also less. And sometimes devotees' capacity to accept feedback also diminishes. So it is a great benediction. We can get some feedback from devotees and you should welcome it. So that is one way devotees may very softly indicate that, okay, there is some tendency which is not pleasing to Guru and Krishna. And certainly prayers and reading Shastra, I think that the Maranam will also allow us to introspect. His Holiness Vadana Samaj, once he was speaking about humility, he mentioned to be humble, one just needs to be honest. Maharaj said that if one wants to be humble, they just need to be honest. So, because if we self-introspect, we can find so many blemishes in our own in our own consciousness. And Maharaj said, if you cannot find blemishes in your consciousness that time, think 10 years back what kind of consciousness you had. Remember those blemishes. So that way we can be humble. So so that is my so these two devotees can add. I think a conscious desire to be humble would also give us continuous would help us to be introspective and conscious about the blemishes that we have in our heart, in our consciousness. You want to write those?
Feedback, prayers, reading Shastra, trying to be humble, by finding blemishes.
Want to add something? Roji, you want to add? Oh,
Main thing is you just have to want it. You have to be want and self examining. And devotees are always like that. Devotees are very introspective. And if you're introspective, you really want to look at yourself. It's not hard to see the problems. Because Krishna gives us intelligence, we have some intelligence given to us by Krishna, and he can he will very readily show us the things that are there. Just have to, main thing is you just have to want to be honest with yourself, and just want to be introspective, and then you'll see things really. We're used to that. We're used to the problem, so we don't think about it much. But with the education, the things that are pointed out by the Shastras and spiritual master and fellow devotees, we can. It's pretty easy to see the problems that we have, even though they're a little bit hidden, a little bit unconscious of them because of living with them for so long. But if you really want to, you'll very easily see all kinds of little things and not so little things. As Krishna let us see.
and Krishna was intelligence. So, thank you, Gauri, for giving this answer. You already know the answer, but thank you for asking this. Those any comments? Critical class. Critical class is the whole point of holding the rope. That. And alert us how that community is. Good people feel also alert. And so see that he is not distracted from his Krishna consciousness. So point I was trying to reflect on. So rather than saying that devotionals, I'm getting devotional service with the parents or getting the hospitality. So the words is all actually the types of so we have got this devotional program. And then other that was mentioned there, she said rather be Sunichana. That is after because if follow this verse, then we can take shelter of the Lord. I see. So I think your point of humility was corrected. So to degree we follow this verse, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told that all this ridiculous. There are no Sunichana always doing that. So but this is also similar. This Suddha Suddha Siddha Suddha or something.
Siddha Pranali.
Siddha Pranali. This helps us, if we work on this, then it helps us to take shelter of the Holy Name. Then we can example and we can take shelter. The practical points you said about being open to the feedback of devotees. I mean, this is something it happens when we are in association with devotees. So we associate with devotees, we keep ourselves open to them. It's easy to access and also when feedback comes, you said that's benediction, same level benediction. So that's very helpful. Otherwise, if we show ourselves upset if some feedback comes, then devotees also will not feel encouraged. So if we actually, even though we will feel bad, but understanding is Mukta saying with intelligence that it's good fun. And then we can see what we can work on that with the help of others in devotees. Understanding of the scriptures. So I think this also is part of humility that we exercise that. We are happy to take feedbacks from the devotees. If you are getting feedbacks from their well wishes, so that way we keep that move. And then we can keep refining ourselves. That is possible in the association. So as the association is to degree association is not or we don't associate with devotees to that degree, not have that opportunity also much. So it's devotee that get different varieties of feedbacks. And devotees are very happy with feedbacks also, actually. They're quite happy. Only thing is we were not so happy, so they may not be approaching us. Otherwise, you see, we are quite happy to give feedbacks. If we give them little encouragement, but that is good actually. No, I mean, because devotees do understand. They're well wisher. They know how things could be better. They know shows them. And as Mukta was saying, we ourselves can also know. Because Krishna, if you're sincere, then Krishna will indicate us. So both ways Krishna helps to devotees and to if you are also sincere, then Krishna will give us also intelligence to understand both ways. So being depending on Krishna that way and trying to introspect and refine. So I see blessing that I can do that. It's not easy, but I have to work on it.
Any other comments? Any comment?
And this one director is mentioned about humility and other things. Humility is actually true honesty. There is honesty with ourselves. That is the first step. To just introspect and learn see the mission and everything. At this point before. Although that story I heard first time, I realized what actually get that story. Always this propensity to travel and see different planets are always there. I'll make one comments. I like the point where you said that being humble was about being honest. Something that I think it's kind of obviously very difficult to sort of put that perspective in life. So equating being humble with being honest is very good. I guess we need to show face.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for sharing your insights about like you mentioned that like about like contemplating about on ourselves when why we think of it possible. Like I also experienced that when we try to like when we try to endeavor to hear properly in lectures, we try to contemplate on the points, we somehow get realization which can help us to identify our faults. So I just wanted to add up to that. And even in in praying in front of deities, like if we try to be apologetic in a mode of servant, we also try to identify these kinds of faults within us. So I think that's a good way to identify these small faults that we
What was the last thing you said?
like if we pray in front of deities in apologetic way, like I'm like being apologetic about any small offense that we do. So I think that's a very good way to identify these small faults that we have within us.
Manam said Manam. Contemplation.
And
I also like the point of feedback mechanism, both getting feedback and accepting. That's really important.
Yeah, this point was really good. That Mananam is something can be very helpful. Because many times we hear the lectures and the Shastras, but we may not sufficiently do Mananam. Rasham says this, no? He says, one thing is knowledge, but then understanding of the knowledge. So more we actually reflect on it, that degree of we actually able to digest and assimilate that. So like the example of cow is given, the cow eats then it chews. So it is very important that we reflect on the points, means contemplate. So there are devotees who do that. They will take the notes and again they will think about it. They will think and they will write down some things. I've seen some devotees doing that. So it's very helpful. And just by sharing with other devotee also is very helpful. So then we can get some idea that how this can be applied in our life. So Malayalam is something it's very crucial. After hearing the Malayalam part, if it is not much there, then we cannot habituate like this. A lot of lectures we may hear. We may not able to take advantage that much. Of course, advantage will be there. Because some way compatibility here and there. But the degree we consciously do this part important is very helpful.
I heard one.
Yeah. Obviously, I see lessons that I myself followed because all the points is just like taking from devotees and from books and I heard one more point from Bajri Haibu. He was speaking about Mananam only. He was saying that he knows some devotee who actually was conscious effort to connect and he prays. And until the time, he doesn't feel like connection with Lord or devotees. He just keeps waiting and trying, and then he starts doing the service, like whether it's chanting or so. Basically, consciously praying to feel that connect. Also, he was mentioning about prayer to mood and contempt.
Connection with the point, what the point he has heard.
Connection to the point and connection to Krishna. Like for example, you heard like Chakuri. It may not be perfectly fall into Mananam, but maybe more on prayerful mood, maybe. Like if you hear from Japa talk something, and then you heard, and then you want to implement, and then you pray, and till the time that devotee doesn't feel connection with that point and with Krishna, he doesn't touch him. But I like that point when I heard. Because sometimes we think and then we like leave it. So that devotee would wait until he feels like that.
But we don't have to wait too much also.
We should not wait too much also. Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.